Worldview is said to be the glasses through which you see life. If I wear one set of eyeglasses, it's not going to be the same as if I now change my set of glasses and use a different one. So each set of glasses will give a different viewpoint. For example, if we wear green sunglasses, the whole horizon will look green. If I wear red ones, again it will all turn red. Unfortunately, these glasses are not glasses you have a choice on. It depends on our worldview. Initially is what is fed to us in the first 10 years of life. When you are trying to fathom and understand things, you finally come to a belief system about what is right and what is wrong. Can you eat a dog, or is dog bad meat? Can you eat a frog, or is frog bad meat? Can you eat a snail, or is snail something that will make you vomit? All of that depends on your worldview. That's why the culture is a big contributor to our worldview. Parenting is a big contributor to our worldview. So the worldview is a belief system that sees what you call good and what you call bad. And I think that's what the Word of God is referring to in the book of Romans chapter 12, when it says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is a reasonable service, and do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Here, the Word of God is saying, before you become a Christian, you had one set of glasses through which you saw life. Getting saved is regarded as being born again. It's like you are now going to develop a new set of glasses through which you interpret life. That's why you have one guy before he is saved who is running after women. Now, after that, he thinks that's a terrible way of living because he's looking at the same thing. He doesn't see sex the same way it was seen. He saw it earlier. He doesn't see women as things to be used. He has changed his view of life, his view of women. The same thing with alcohol. You find somebody who could not enjoy life without a glass of wine, without some beer drinking session. How do you say you're on holiday without it? He gets saved. And he has a lot of joy, yet alcohol doesn't come anywhere near him. What has happened? He is looking at life in a very, very different way. And because he's looking at life differently, he is interpreting differently. And you know that worldview will determine the decisions you make and how you make them. But it's not determining what you enjoy and what you don't. That's why it's so critical that if you want to change society, what you must go is their worldview. What is their worldview? You know, worldview is so strong, like I've said in my book on integrity, that when the missionary came to Africa and said, do not steal, the African thought, wow, this is a good religion to take. It just says what we say. Do not steal. So they had no difficulty accepting Christianity. Do not steal. But the word do not steal has to be seen in the light of the glasses you are wearing. So, as somebody has become a Christian, but despite becoming a Christian, he is still cattle rustling. He joins the other young men to go to another tribe to steal their cows and comes home with them and is rejoicing how God protected him from suffering, death during the work he was doing, because he's regarding it as work. He said, but you stole somebody's cows and you are a Christian. How can you be involved in stealing? He said, no, you don't understand. I did not steal. Stealing, according to his worldview, is stealing from your friends, stealing from your clan, stealing from your tribe. But stealing from another tribe, it isn't stealing. That's not the understanding of stealing. And you're surprised. But that's worldview for you. That what somebody is calling the same thing doesn't mean the same thing to you. So you need to understand. I remember one missionary in an unreached people group telling me how surprised he was that he saw one of the church elders. It was reported to him that he had beaten the wife. And he said, how could you do that? How could you beat sister so-and-so? And then Mzee was in shock. Says, I haven't done anything wrong. I have not beaten anybody. From the time I got saved, I stopped violence. But what was that you did to your wife? Says, but that is a woman I paid goat for. By paying dowry, I got the right to discipline my wife. What could be wrong? Does God not want a disciplined family? Why would you tell me I have done anything wrong disciplining my wife? And it's a wife for whom I have already paid dowry. And the missionary was telling me how confused he was, trying to explain to him, when the Bible is against violence, it's a violence even against your own children, or violence against your own wife. And for all things, wives are not to be beaten. You can talk about it because this is an adult. But you see, the worldview of this particular tribe, women and children are people who are not yet fully mature. They require to be disciplined so that they can become better. That's how you have a better home. All of that has to be what we are calling worldview, that is helping to interpret things. So you're saying the same thing. Or I've given another one where I talk about going to a restaurant, and my Englishman friend is so happy to see snails and crabs and wow, seafood. Thank you very much. At that time, I'm running away from it. I can't see how a human being can eat snails. How you can eat crabs that are moving with their legs from every direction, and they will bite you if they get near you. How do you eat what eats you? But that's to do with worldview. That I grew up knowing you don't eat such things. He grew up knowing that when the father is properly loaded, has enough cash, the way to do a treat for the family is to take them to a seafood restaurant. That is worldview. And they tell us within the first 10 years of life, your worldview is fully made. From then onwards, even if you live to be 100, anything you call good will be good because that's what you learned in the first 10 years. Anything you call bad will be bad. That's what you called it in the first 10 years. And that's why we have heard of this missionary who said, give me a child until they are 9. And they always be Christians. But that is if you do a proper job in it. That's why Deuteronomy chapter 6 is telling parents, it is their responsibility to create a biblical worldview in a child, such that when they go into life, what they call good and what they call evil will be what the Bible calls good or calls evil. Because you first 10 years to prepare them. The Muslims call it madrasa, where you get a child through the Quran until they have memorized the whole Quran. Their thinking is Quran. Everything is Quran about them. The rest of their life, they live their lives on the basis of those first 10 years of life. And we need to understand then, when the Bible is talking about transformation, for sure it will be transformation. Because how do you call something different from the way you have believed? And now you can understand why we use the word born again. Because you are going to be saying something so different from what you believe and what your culture believes, what your other children believe. So different that it would have to be you are now a new person. You have been born again. And I think that's a very important thing to understand and ask yourself. So, are you born again? In other words, is your thinking similar to what it was before you were born again? Or has it changed? You know, getting born again is one. To actually change your worldview requires discipling. That's why Jesus said, those who believe, teach them whatsoever I have taught you. In other words, the discipling process is a process of replacing your traditional worldview to get a biblical worldview. That's what discipleship is all about. And you need to ask yourself, have you done that? Is that what you are doing? Is that what you believe in? And that will be something important for you to look at and to ask. You know, you are doing all that and willing to surrender and to change because you believe God has something for you that is important. That in the new life, the changed life, the born again life, will actually be beneficial for you. You know, it's all therefore it's a question of surrender. You yield, you are yielding, surrendering to God so that you do not insist on your own any further. So surrender. You have to surrender your past so that you call good something you are calling evil, and you call evil something you are calling good. And I think that will be something very important. But the good thing, the reason why you are able to surrender is because you believe the Lord is merciful. Although He's the one, you are allowing Him to conquer you, conquer your spirit, conquer your will. He is a merciful conqueror. He's going to conquer you, yes, but it's you who is actually doing it, accepting willingly. Of course, if you don't accept that now, the Bible tells us one day you have to kneel. For every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. But for now, it is voluntary. So I think it's important to understand this idea of changing your worldview. It's because you know that God is who He is, and you are not really going to have a good time when you are against Him. You know, even if you have an enemy, you should not be having the most powerful as your enemy. How can you have God do things that God is not pleased with if you really know who God is? But you know He is a merciful God. He's just waiting for you to accept. You know, mercy is simply you are enjoying what you don't deserve. You deserve punishment. Instead of Him punishing you, He actually forgives you. And only those who accept that they are no match for the Lord and the Lord is their creator are able to surrender. You can't please God without surrendering, without accepting His mercy. In other words, you accept that you deserve worse, but what He's giving you is not. You are helpless before God. Please remember that only those who surrender actually get saved, get born again. It's not forced for now. You know you no longer become defensive because you are willing to accept the Lord and walk with Him. You refuse to continue directing yourself. You now want Him to direct you. You know, surrender to Christ. How do you prove you have run to Christ? Because you no longer insist on your own. You have sacrificed self, and God has taken over as the director of your life. You are not longer egocentric. You are Christocentric. And this sacrifice is something you do daily. You remind yourself that you no longer control your life. And you do it willingly. It's not a duty. You even give thanks. That's why we saw that. That's why you are calling it a living sacrifice. It's on the altar. It can run away from the altar because it's alive, but it doesn't run away from the altar. It's not forced. It's voluntary. And you're offering your body, not just your spirit. You are offering your body. And you are not doing so publicly, not just in secret. Other people will know about it. And you are not going to create a dichotomy. You are going to fully surrender to God, which of course the Bible is telling us is a spiritual act that we need to be aware of, so that we are honoring to God and praising Him by the new life which we are talking about. Now, once you do that, you are going to be holy and pleasing to God. The things you are doing will be holy. That means there is no sin. But more important, you don't live to please self. You live to please the Lord. You have accepted to die to self and Christ to be in control. And you are doing a spiritual act. It's not a ritual, but a spiritual act. It's something that God honors and that God is happy about. And I think that will be important. But in the process, you're also actually doing worship. And I think that will be an important thing to understand. And pray that we live to honor it and to praise God for it. Let's look at verse 2 again. And do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That's basically what he is saying. In other words, there's a reason as to why he's asking you to surrender, sacrifice yourself willingly, so that you start living a totally new life. So who is he saying? If you've truly surrendered yourself, then the first thing that will happen is you will not conform to this world. You will not do things that the world thinks are good. You will not do the things because your clan accepts it. You will not do things because the council of elders has said it. You will not do things because your parents have said it. You do not conform to this world. Now, you conform differently. And I think that will be something important to ask yourself. What does conforming mean in your own life? It's to fit in the mold. When many things, manufacturers use molds, so that way they pour the liquid into a mold, and when it dries up, they remove the mold, and the thing comes out exactly the same shape. And you can put thousands and thousands of items looking the same way because you're using the same mold. And I hear God is asking you, don't be in the world's mold. Don't be in their worldview. That's why they will say, this Nganga is so different. He is born again. He's a new creature. So you're not conforming. Of course, that will cost you friends. That will cost you not just friends, but relatives. Could even cost you your spouse. It could cost you your children. Because now, the things they call good, you don't call good. The things they call bad might be what you are calling good. And it causes confusion in your family. Confusion in your school. Confusion wherever your friends are. But that's what it means. Don't conform. The word of God is saying, don't conform. Don't be a conformist to the things of life. That means in your professional life, you will be an engineer like every other engineer. But there are certain things engineers do which you'll not do. Or there are certain ways of doing engineering which you'll not do. Because you are not conforming to this world. Of course, doesn't mean you become difficult for the sake of it. Anything that's okay to do, you will do it the same way all other engineers are doing. But there will be certain things you cannot do. The same way because you are not conforming any longer. And the same thing with your driving on the road. You will not drive like other drivers or the way they are driving because you are not being told not to conform. So your driving will be different. The same thing with the process of marriage and wedding and marriage and girlfriend and boyfriend. You will not do what other people do. No. If somebody wants to marry you, they have to know that your friendship will be totally different because you will not conform to the way girlfriends behave. You'll be different. In the process, you'll be dropped by many boys. You start a relationship, you're dropped. You start another, you are dropped. Until God has determined the one who can accept you, who has similar views to you. You know, when we tell boys, you cannot marry a non-Christian girl, and yet they are beautiful, they are nice. Yeah, because they may be beautiful, you may even like their beauty, but their worldview is different from yours. And it will create chaos in your own marriage. Because the Bible is telling us clear. It's a commandment. Don't conform. The same way it says, don't commit adultery. It's also saying, don't conform. What don't you conform to? To the pattern of this world. To the way things are done in this world. You must ask, would Jesus be happy with this? Either with the product or the way it is produced? Maybe the product is okay, but the way the process of producing it isn't okay. And so that's really one of the things you have to think about. Don't conform. Don't fit into the mold. Don't fit into the pattern of the world. You see, the world will accept things that are evil. It will even accept things that are corrupt. And it will be me first kind of society and materialistic. What drives you is your definition of success. And the way a Christian defines success won't be different from the way the world defines success. And that is something. So don't conform. So what do you do if you don't conform? A positive instruction. Be transformed. What is to be transformed? I think is to move from where you are to a totally new place, to a totally new person. So to be transformed is similar to being born again. You know, a butterfly starts by being at a caterpillar. Can you imagine looking at a caterpillar, imagining one day to be a fly? You know, a caterpillar is a misfit within butterflies. But once a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, then it will fit among butterflies. So we need to understand what we are learning, what we're being instructed. To be transformed means you take a new pattern. You do things in a new way. But how do you become transformed? The Bible gives instructions of what? First of all, you must renew your mind. You must renew your mind. That means your thinking, your concentration, what you call good, your worldview, your viewpoint is different. So the first thing is your mind. That's why now you have to saturate your mind with God's word. That's why quiet time becomes very, very important to you. And you spend a lot of your time in quiet time. That is what is quiet time? A time when you block the whole world so that you have one-on-one with God. Studying the scriptures, prayer, listening, meditating on what God is telling you, so that He can give you a new perspective. Your mind will think in a different way. So renewal of your mind is one of the things that has to happen if you are going to be transformed. So you feed the mind with scriptures, and this will change your viewpoint on many things. And I think that is important. You know, it is to see things differently. For example, you don't know if you know Akiondo, the African basket, and it's when they make it with sisal, it becomes very beautiful on the outside. But if it was one and done and you see the inside, you see it's not as well finished as the outside is. But it's important when you transform, you move away from the inside to the outside. And that is important. Be transformed. Then, once you are renewed and your mind is renewed, you now know things that you did not know, and you want to do things you did not do, and you don't want to waste the opportunities God gives you. So, the two things, if you really want to be transformed, you must renew your mind. You must change your way of thinking. Now, what will be the result of a transformed mind? Number one, you may prove what is good. You now have proof of what is good. Because the renewed, transformed mind will see things differently. You will prove what is good. And when it is good, it means there is nothing better than it. You will not be mediocre. You'll be going for what is good. And I think that will be something that's important. Number two, you will look only for things that please God. Not just please you, but things that please God. And number three, you only go for things that glorify God. And in the process, you will now be operating within the perfect will of God. Let me read again. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what is that good, not just good, and acceptable or pleasing, and not just acceptable to God, but perfect will of God. Not half perfect, not that you be nice. No, you are going for what is perfect will of God. And I think that will be something you need to ask yourself. Do you believe in what is perfect will of God? Or you want for the permissive will of God? And he's saying, no, once you are transformed, you don't go for the permissive will of God. God can allow that. He understands our nature. No. You go for what is the perfect will of God. And I think that's a very, very important thing to say. So, we're talking about transformation. We are talking about not being conformed. And we are talking about surrendering your traditional worldview so that you actually have a new view, which we are calling biblical worldview. And that is Romans chapter 1 and 2. And that will be very, very important for anybody who calls themselves a Christian. Like I told you, the book of Romans, the first 11 verses are talking about the theology of salvation. From chapter 12, we now start seeing the practical life of somebody who is actually born again. And on this, he begins by saying, this newly born again person who will present their bodies as a living sacrifice, number one. Number two, they will not conform to the pattern of this world. Instead, they will take on the transformation to a new life where God, perfect will, is the one that is actually practiced.